Frank, good to see you.
Good to see you, Chris. How you doing, mate?
Very well. So we're here in a dark corner of one of your favourite restaurants, and we should really be celebrating the fact that Fury v Usyk's been made, but unfortunately, that's not the case.
We're drowning our sorrows. Unfortunately.
I know, it's a real shame. I think, boxing, as we know, is the greatest sport in the world, but it can also bring you a lot of tears as well.
It can, especially when you think you've got an event done, and we worked very hard to get this over the line. We had a conference call on Sunday, 9 o'clock last Sunday morning, with all the parties, 4 lawyers on there, and we got everything more or less agreed, bar the terms of the rematch. And at that stage, there wasn't a rematch, and Tyson conceded, said, all right, I'll give him a rematch. And on the Monday, we got an email from Aegis, who is the manager of Usyk, saying they're pulling the plug on it.
Because, on Sunday, Arsenal had just won. You're obviously in buoyant mood. You said big announcement coming.
Because we had a real good, everybody on that call came off it, and I don't understand it. And on the Sunday on the Monday we got this thing. You want me? I'll read it to you. If you need me to read it to you, what came through, and then I tried to resurrect it again on this TalkSport did something, and they got Alex Krasik on there. I went on there with him in response to what he said, and I said, get him back on. Let's say what's got to be said, because he said that it'd take him 15 minutes to list all of Tyson's demands, and I said to him, why did you say that? There were no demands. We agreed on Monday, and there was one outstanding issue, which was the rematch, which shouldn't really be an issue because the 4 belts are going to be available just once, and that had been on the 29th. You said if the fight don't go on the 29th, it's dead in the water. You're the one who accepted the terms that Tyson put out. We didn't negotiate. Tyson said it's 70-30, and you came back and said you want it. We didn't even negotiate.
So where did all this talk come of, okay, so the rematch, Tyson agrees to the rematch. All of a sudden, there was like, no, we want 70-30 for the rematch. Did that take you by surprise?
Yeah, it did, but as we know now, he wasn't even in training camp on that day. He'd come out of Turkey where he was training and was on his way back to Kiev. So it was just bullshit.
So, heart of hearts, do you think they didn't want the fight?
Looking back on it with the benefit of hindsight, I believe that, at the time, when we had the 29th, I didn't think Tyson would be ready because he had an injury. You know that because I didn't think he was going to be ready, and they said when he put that thing out, they called his bluff as such and said if you're not ready on that date, then it's dead, and we then want 50-50. And Tyson came back and said, I'll be ready. And after that, I think it all went cold.
So it just seems, okay, so the people who aren't involved in boxing, the mechanics of boxing, the people who are on Twitter, the people who are sitting at home waiting for this fight to happen, how can a big fight like this fall apart on just one, what some people might consider a small detail?
Because the fighters have got both want to do it. They both have got to sign up for it. And if one of them doesn't sign up, you can't force them to. And that's it. They changed their mind. And I think they got it in their head that they can do a fight in Saudi in the summer and earn good money, and they think they can revisit this in December in Saudi again. But there won't be 4 belts around by then.
But I can't. Do you think? This clause, because obviously with a rematch, it's the loser who basically activates that clause. Is there a sense that maybe they feared that Usyk was going to lose, so they were just like protecting themselves?
I'll tell you something. The rematch is predicated on the loser has the right to call the rematch, not the winner. So for him, it's 2 lots of money. What does he do otherwise? He fights. Who's he going to fight? Hrgovic? Daniel Dubois, which is Daniel Dubois and Joe Joyce at least bring BT to the table. Hrgovic, who cares? Doesn't bring nothing. I'm not being rude, but he do care. That is not Hrgovic against Usyk, a Ukrainian fighting wherever Hrgovic come from. He's not pay-per-view in the UK. Am I right?
Yeah.
So that ain't big money fight. The big money fight from his Tyson. The next big money fights unless Saudi want to subsidise something, are the two Brits, because we've got a big, we bring pay-per-view to the table.
Well, you mentioned Daniel Dubois. Daniel Dubois was here earlier on. I spoke to him. He's the mandatory. So what's the position on that, just to clear that up?
Well, the mandatory is that he's the WBA regular champion, and the WBA have said in writing, if we hadn't agreed terms and submitted contracts by the 1st of April for Tyson and Usyk, that's the fight. They're calling that mandatory defence. I don't think that Daniel's ready to box. He's here today. He is ready to go. So they're not going to get a fight. I noticed in the interview he did yesterday on IFL, Alex said, we'll fight the WBA mandatory, thinking that they can bypass him. Ain't going to happen. That's who he's fighting.
So there's no chance of step-aside money for, say, like a Wilder or... That's the other name that's been mentioned heavily.
They can mention what they like.
As far as you're concerned, Dubois, and I think we're talking about May, June, it's Dubois, Usyk for the 3 belts.
Or he vacates the title.
And then Dubois becomes champion by default, basically. Okay, so, but that in itself, I mean, obviously, I'm not gonna lie. Fury Usyk's the fight we all wanted. It's rubbish. It's not going to happen. But Usyk Dubois sounds pretty tasty. I mean, you've got the master craftsman.
They're good fights. I mean, he's a young up-and-coming guy, big puncher, he can box. He's shown he's got a bit of heart. That's a good fight. It's a big fight. I look at Usyk against Chisora, and the problems Chisora give him, and I think Daniel can beat him.
It's whether, I mean, Daniel's got the power. We know that. It's whether he can get the chance to use that power, because Usyk is...
Daniel's got a good jab. Don't underestimate that. He can box as well. And we've also got Joe, who's fighting Zhang on the 15th of April. You know, that's another problem that he's got. I think with Joe's too big and too strong for him. So they ain't going to be, those belts won't be there, because those mandatories are going to be called.
But that's such a shame. We've waited 1999 for the last undisputed. So you're sounding like you don't, well, this is 4 obviously, but you don't think in your heart of hearts it's going to happen anytime soon?
They're out. They've said they're out. I mean, you know, we were willing to go up till sort of this weekend, try and get it resolved, but they were out. We didn't even negotiate the terms of the rematch yesterday. He came on, he said, Frank, it's out. You don't want to fight him.
What about Tyson? I mean, Tyson's just put out a rather explicit video, shall we say. You can say he's not happy, but he's the one that seems to be getting the most stick on social media. People
understand it. I really don't understand it. You know, I mentioned earlier, you know, you go back. I mean, he said yesterday on an interview, Alex Krasik, that look at Tyson's numbers on pay-per-view. The 3 Wilder fights drew between US TV and BT did over 3 million buys. The fight, the fight in Vegas was the biggest grossing, highest grossing heavyweight fight to have ever taken place there. That's Tyson. The fight Tyson had last year against Dillian Whyte was the highest grossing event, not boxing, event that ever took place at Wembley, one-day event. It was the highest grossing pay-per-view event to take place in the UK last year, beating Usyk and Joyce. Just madness. You know, in this country, what you got, 150, 200 hardcore fans, the rest are people who buy into when the big event. And they buy into Tyson, who brings all this money to the table for these guys where they earn money, because he's had 3 #1 books, bestsellers. He's just said the pay-per-view is what it is. He's got a series that's coming out on Netflix that they paid a lot of money to him to do, because he's got such a high profile. He did an ITV fly on the wall series. This guy's big, you know. He's not boxing. He's entertainment.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I can't disagree with any of that. I think people on Twitter are saying that Fury never wanted the fight, and it's just him getting out.
It's been good old English expression. That's bollocks. He's been in training, got his sparring partners there. His chef flew in, his trainer Sugar flew in. He's been training for this fight. Anyone who says that it's just ignorantly stupid to even make that comment. He's been in training. What do you think, we're making this up? You think on Mother's Day everybody's doing their things with their mums and your kids who want to be with them, all that, we're spending time on phones at 9 o'clock in the morning with lawyers who we got to pay for a laugh? I'm trying to pull this game. Do you think yesterday on Talk Sport, that do you think when I'm being told let's speak afterwards and we'll do this, I'm optimistic? And I'm going to tell you something here, and I'm going to have to read it. You're going to have to bear with me. It's quite important. On Talk Sport yesterday, on Talk Sport, the interview went on, and it was Alex on there, and I'm sort of paraphrasing, but this is the transcript. He says on there, Jim, it's sort of Jim White, Jim, I want to thank Frank and Queensberry for making everything possible. Everything was in their power, the same like it was in our power. This is not their fault. I say it's not my fault. It's Queensberry's fault. They're having a client like Tyson, like they've got their client like Usyk. And then he goes on to say, he says, Usyk came up very clearly. I accepted a 70-30 and you have to accept a donation of 1 million, which we dealt with on the Sunday to the people. So that was his demands. That's Usyk's demands, right? He said it's his demands. So Tyson chose to hear for the first part of it and didn't want to hear the second. This is a small thing. I mean, it's nothing to do with Queensberry or Frank. It's just a matter of how Tyson estimates himself, which I suppose he means to value himself. He then goes on to say, I'm not even blaming him because it is what it is. So he ain't even blaming Tyson. Go and listen to it. It's on there. Just download it and listen to what was said. That is the truth of it. Don't go and, hear what he said. And he said it because I was on the radio and there weren't 15 minutes to talk about all the things that Tyson demanded, because it was all dealt with. What he demanded, or what Usyk demanded, what Tyson wanted, we dealt with it by one thing.
Okay, so Tyson himself, though, where does he go from here, though? What? I
don't know yet. I mean, it's all very raw, so we'll see. He's still in training. I spoke to him today. He's not very happy, and it's too soon to be. Let his dust settle. I don't know what he wants to do. He may not want to fight again. I have no idea what he wants to do. But whatever he wants to do, as always, I'll be with him.
Could Joshua rear its ugly head again? Is that dead in the water?
No, I don't know. I mean, that was a bad experience last time.
Okay. Well, talking of fighters that are going to fight, Joe Joyce. So that is definitely happening, Frank, isn't it?
Well, please God, that's a good fight.
Yeah, that's a great fight. Why is he taking that fight? It's mental.
It tells you a lot about Joe.
Yeah.
This guy, his last fight was an eliminator for the mandatory position for the IBF against Hrgovic, who's now the mandatory. And I thought he won that fight, as did most people who watched it. And for Joe, who now is the WBO interim champion, which means that he is the mandatory for their title. If Usyk vacates the belt, he automatically becomes champion. For him to even think about not marking time, let's find me someone I can mark time with, says a lot about him. He's gone and said, right, I want to fight this big guy.
Yeah, I mean, Joe's, we've all seen that chin. I mean, a lot of people, this isn't a world title fight, it wouldn't be at the moment, have floated the name of Deontay Wilder like the irresistible force against the immovable object.
That's exactly what it is. I mean, that would be a great fight down the road, no doubt about it. Joe's got to get through a difficult fight, but Joe has got a good chin, and he does take the shots to land his shots, but he's better than that, believe you me. He's a much better fighter. He's a very much avoided fighter.
Oh, absolutely. And just for the people watching, because again, a little chat on social media. I know we feel like we're governed by social media these days, but people are saying, how come Joe Joyce beats Daniel Dubois, but Daniel Dubois is next in line for Usyk?
Because that's what the governing body, it's not down to us, that's what the governing body's decided. And they decided that ages ago when Joshua held 3 belts, and they said this is the rotation of the mandatory defences. And that's what they would. This all happened long before either of those guys become champion.
Okay, just final question, Frank. Fury Usyk, do you think we'll ever see this fight?
It doesn't look like it. If it is, it won't be for the 4 belts.
That's a shame. I mean, honestly...
Gutted.
Yeah.
I put a thing out saying, big news coming up. I was that confident I could kick myself.
It's such a shame. I mean, I'm talking to you now.
Tyson didn't pull out and we didn't pull out. And it weren't ultimatums. We didn't even get to, after that conversation, which all the listeners heard on TalkSport, let's talk afterwards. It took place, I said, well, I'll call him straight after, which I did. That call took place later on in the afternoon, and Eagles come on and said, we didn't even get to saying, 50, 50, 40. He just said, he's out. And that was it. Back in Kiev. So he must have been in Kiev. You can't fly from Turkey to Kiev. There's no direct flights because of the war and the airspace. So to get to Kiev, you've got to fly to Poland. You get a train from Poland, which is like a 10-hour, 12-hour journey. So he must have gone home on Sunday.
Well, listen, okay, Frank. Well, you've got Joe Joyce to look forward to. And I'm sure, we've got Tyson still as a world champion. And you've got so many options. It's scary.
We have, and we'll sort something out. And we are disappointed. I am disappointed for fans. I'm disappointed. It's been a journey with Tyson, which we set out to do on BT back when we all started putting boxing on BT to do this. And it's very sad we're in this position.
Okay, mate. Well, listen, that phone's been ringed out while I've been talking to you. God knows who's calling, but I'll let you get back.
I know it's not calling me.
Cheers, mate. Thank you.